How's it? Welcome to CannaSphere Africa, your weekly roundup of all things happening in the African cannabis industry. We are 24 hours late, and we don't care.
We do care, guys. No, we do.
Yeah, we were in Lesotho yesterday, and we were struggling to get signal. Then there was load shedding in Limpopo, so Brett couldn't get on. So all in all, it didn't happen. But for those of you who are watching this after the live show, you don't care either. So we don't really care. Anyway, we've got lots coming up in today's show. We're going to be talking about a mystery drink, a mystery cannabis drink. What that's all about. We'll also be talking about SATSA and their call for tour operators to look for canna tourism opportunities. It seems like everyone's jumping on this.
I'm glad to hear that, because we all want everyone to get onto this cannabis bandwagon and finally start moving things. And so also we're going to be talking about a Kanda calls for Lesotho SA cannabis alignment. So I don't know what all that's about, but I'm very excited to hear about that information.
We haven't quite aligned South Africa cannabis-wise, so I'm not sure how we're going to align Lesotho and South Africa until we get our together. Anyway, let's see what happens. Lesotho cannabis to be available to UK patients. That's very exciting.
I wonder when South African cannabis is going to be available for UK patients, but that remains to be seen. And then also, Noxy is going to be giving us some tips about what happens to weed and how to preserve our weed to make sure it's still fresh.
Does weed go bad?
Well, that's what we're going to be discovering about on Canna Lifestyle.
We'll also be talking about Malawi. Malawi urges hemp farmers to form co-ops to bargain for better prices. Now that is a good statement from a government who know about what they're trying to do. Right, without further ado though, let's cross over to Limpopo province, where there's hopefully no load shedding. Brett, over to you.
Greetings from the CannaSphere news desk in the rolling foothills of Limpopo. David Frost, the CEO of the South African Tour Services Association, SATSA, has called on its 1,300 members to study the National Cannabis Master Plan to see where there may be opportunities for the tourism industry. Speaking in Limpopo last week, Frost said tourism was one of the most cutthroat industries in the world, and that South African cannabis reform provided the tourism industry with a competitive advantage that should be seized in the wake of the COVID-inflicted bruising. Frost said that canna tourism was a niche that could be developed like the hunting industry, for instance, and that it could bring in an extra 2 billion rand a year in foreign exchange. He said South Africa should take a leaf out of the books of countries where cannabis has been legalized. The United States and Canada, he said, were leading the way, while Jamaica, Thailand, and North Macedonia were putting canna tourism at the center of their legalization drives. Frost warned that the commercial sale of cannabis remained prohibited, but the fact that the Cannabis Master Plan's intention was to unlock all economic benefits of the plant meant that it was probably a matter of time before the tourism industry could really take advantage of this. One country that seems to be getting export cannabis right is Lesotho, which has really landed on the international map this year. Akanda CEO Tej Virk says that the London-based company was making exciting inroads into the new UK medical cannabis market. The big jewel in its crown is Bophelo Wellness in Lesotho. Birch says that climate change is making sustainability all the more important, and Akanda wants to make ethical sourcing of cannabis a market differentiator. He said Akanda was committed to the UN Sustainable Goals and wanted to democratize medical cannabis choice. He said if patients could choose as to where their cannabis medicine was coming from, they would be inclined to want it to come from an ethical workplace. He said Bophelo is looking to ramp up production this year to 10 tons now that it's got a foothold in the UK through Canmart and into Europe through Cantourage. Lesotho, which barely exported a kilogram of dacha last year, now looks set to produce 18 tons this season from 4 main producers. To put that in perspective, Germany, which has been the leading importer of medical cannabis, only imported about 12 tons last year. Are we heading for a glut of cannabis in the world? Will that mean cheaper weed for all? This, as they say, is a developing story. Birch also made the call that South Africa and Lesotho should get their cannabis policies in alignment and work together towards creating international distribution channels. He said South Africa's National Cannabis Master Plan was a step in the right direction and that regional collaboration would give Southern Africa a competitive advantage in the international cannabis market. His point is that South Africa, Lesotho, Malawi, Zimbabwe, Swaziland, and Zambia have all legalized the cultivation of medical cannabis for export only, and they should be working together like OPEC for the oil-producing nations. Maybe you could call ourselves DOPEC. In Malawi, the hemp planting season has gone off a bit slowly, with only 4 of the over 80 licensees actually having crop in the ground. The agriculture minister said some farmers were waiting for more rainfall before planting and warned that growing hemp was a completely new industry that came with opportunities and pitfalls. He urged Malawi's hemp farmers to form cooperatives so that they could increase their bargaining power and get better prices for inputs and outputs. Malawi has been heavily dependent on tobacco as its main export crop and has embraced hemp as an alternative. South Africa could learn from Malawi because we're the Halawi. Malawi has set up a central cannabis authority that coordinates various government departments. It's busy training farmers on how to grow hemp, and it's set its THC levels for hemp at a realistic 1% instead of 0.2% as we've legislated. But ain't no one perfect in this world. The one trick that their central cannabis authority has missed was the opportunity to make Malawi Gold the national brand. Malawi remains a conservative country, and cannabis consumption and dealing remain illegal, punishable by up to 25 years of jail time, which is a bit harsh. And finally, talking of grey areas of the law, here's something that might be, well, a bit blacker. We've got a special investigations by Separations, Jeff Verlinden, who found THC drinks for sale in Joburg. Jeff, what's going on? Hi, Jeff, are we there? Hi, Trenton, Linda, if we can't find Jeff, if he's not there, then maybe we should just pick that one up a little bit later.
Today we're going to take a closer look at THC drinks that are available at Mall of Africa Sweets for Heaven for 300 Rand. Here we are inside Mall of Africa, and here we can see the Sweets for Heaven that's opposite the food court. And here in the back of the store we can actually see the THC drinks in the fridge with some warning labels, and we know that this product has 100 milligrams of THC. Well, there you have it, a 100 milligram THC drink for sale to the public at 300 Rand. A bit of a surprise to see this product, but ultimately these are the types of products that a lot of consumers in South Africa are actually looking for. It was interesting to have a look at the label because they did say, watch out for the delayed onset of the product. There were some exemptions around CBD, but you can clearly see that this is 100 milligram THC per bottle dose, as well as 15 milligrams of CBD. And interestingly, in the store, there was also this magic mushroom juice dispensing fridge that was empty, but generally indicating there could be some interesting products in the pipeline for Black Weed Nation or Black Shroom Nation. Curious to know what you think of these products. Are these the type of products consumers in South Africa want to see? And let's ultimately see what happens to this product range in the South African environment.
Sure, that's really interesting. That's Separations Jeff Verlinden, who's got a pretty good eye on what's happening in the cannabis market. But guys, as far as I'm aware, you know, that's completely illegal. I don't know what you think, Trenton and Linda.
What do you think we think, Brett?
I think we all want the market to evolve towards adult use high THC cannabinoid products, which the main choice will be whether it's combustible or edible. But the regulatory process is allowing some guys to get in ahead of others by breaking the law. And it's not the fact that THC is on sale that's, I think, is a bad thing. Is that other people who are trying to play by the rule books are having to wait until the law changes. And you know, this is a bit of a kind of pirate way of getting in.
So I saw that product in that exact store over a year ago.
Oh wow!
I mean, first of all, Sweets from Heaven is designed for who?
Yeah, I mean, Sweets from Heaven for a start.
Now, so they obviously have a franchise model, and somebody is taking a real chance there. But how can you sell? Firstly, 100 milligrams is a lot to put into a drink, yeah, I think that's really poor for the industry, unfortunately, because there's just no self-regulation there, and eventually that is going to go out to the public, and eventually they will get caught, because I don't think with a brand of that profile you can continue to push out a product like that. But it's very disappointing that there are people in the industry that think that's acceptable, because it's not. And you know, firstly, as you say, they're totally breaking the law, pushing the rules, but also just, you know, 100 milligrams. If somebody takes that who doesn't have any experience with cannabis, and they drink that drink. And when you buy a drink, you pretty much consume the whole drink. I think that's a very dangerous proposition.
Sweets from heaven, you know, horror upon horrors, you know, even.
It certainly won't be heaven if you drink 100 million.
Sweets from hell.
Sweets from hell. Sweets from hell. Absolutely. No, I think it's very sad. So anyway, but thanks for Jeff for pointing that out. It's good to get some good intel.
Thanks, Jeff.
I think it's very exciting what's happening in Lesotho. So we were there over the last few days and met a few of the guys and saw some farms, and it seems to be getting some really good traction. And what's really interesting there is that the government are just very behind it and really see the value, and there seems to be a lot of good things coming out of Lesotho. So very excited to see the stuff coming out of Akana. Also, just very excited to hear about their commitment, which we had first-hand knowledge of, to the local community and making sure that locals are employed and that there's upskilling and training, and that's what it should be about. You know, I don't believe any, this is my personal opinion, I don't believe any SAPRA farm should be allowed that doesn't have some kind of empowerment and uplifting program to make sure that it includes people from all different sectors. So that's also very exciting that that's going on.
Yeah, like looking at how the mistakes that we made in the past with the mines, because we know of Anglo and all these other mining companies, this is a way that, you know, from what we've seen, that the people are beneficiating immediately on the ground from the training, schooling, and education. So some people have been sent over to South Africa to learn about genetics and biology and so on, and they come back and basically reinvest that into the community. And that's beautiful to see that. So if South Africa can copy paste that, please guys, you know, we can get somewhere.
Yeah, and some of the farms that we spoke to, you know, have a local policy where they have to employ a certain percentage of locals, and it's, you know, it's 90-95%. So that is truly caring about the opportunity that you know, on your doorstep. So very exciting. Also, the Malawi thing is also very interesting as well. We met some Malawian diplomats on the weekend as well, and they're very, very committed to doing that. You know, and I had to remind them of how famous Malawi gold was. You know, it was certainly in South Africa. I don't know about the rest of the world, but I had to tell them how I once got a cob, you know, that was buried under the ground, and it's just such a great experience. So they certainly have an amazing recreational kind of cannabis that they can capitalize on globally. So yeah, interesting times. Things are moving super fast at the moment. Lots going on.
Just a very quick comment before we move on. But the difference between Lesotho and Malawi on the one hand and South Africa is they've both established a central cannabis authority which pulls together agriculture, health, justice, and is the license issuer. And it's much more easy to coordinate or align a cannabis policy if you've got one center of leadership. And at the moment, we've got this absolute dog's breakfast of a bun fight, if you'll excuse the mixed metaphors, between SAPRA, justice, agriculture, trade and industry, and never mind the provinces who are all at odds with Pretoria. So until we, as you say, until we get ourselves in alignment, we can't hope to be in alignment with anybody else, never mind Lesotho.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Right, on to lighter stuff. Does weed go bad?
Maybe.
Maybe not. Over to you, Noxy.
Good afternoon and welcome to the CannaSphere Lifestyle Desk. I am Kush Queen, bringing you all things local, international cannabis lifestyle, art, and entertainment. A lot of people still wonder whether they need to do anything to keep their marijuana fresh, and the answer is yes. Because while weed won't really go bad, as most other foods would, it will still get moldy and lose its potency. The biggest threat that cannabis faces is in the form of moisture. Exposure to moisture can cause marijuana to grow old and moldy and mildewy, which can be very harmful to people. Stale weed also loses its potency over time, which makes consuming it a bit meh, for lack of a better word. So how do you know if your weed is good or bad? Well, here are 4 things to look out for. The first thing to note is the smell of your weed. Weed that's not in the best condition will lose its aroma or smell different when compared to a fresh batch. It can smell quite bad at times as well. You can also look to see if it's old. Well, fresh buds won't really crumble when you press or break them. If your weed does that, it's a good sign that it's ancient. The texture of old weed is also different. It will not really harm you, though, unless it has grown moldy sitting in a wet jar. Old marijuana also doesn't taste pleasant. It can often have a harsh flavor that will likely make you cough or sometimes even vomit. If weed is stored correctly, it can last up to 2 years. Use glass jars. Amber glass is obviously best, with airtight seals. Keep it in a cool and dry area and away from direct sunlight. And that is it from me, guys. Do share any tips or tricks on how to keep your weed fresh. Drop us a comment and share your secrets with us. And back to you guys. This is a great example, actually, of jars that can work.
I just have a question. What does "ma" mean?
Meh. It's meh.
Ma.
Meh. Meh.
Is it another
Meh.
word for cock?
Yeah, you know what?
These millennials and their words.
Well, you
It's
know what
another
"ma"
word
also means. "Ma" is Chinese for marijuana.
Really?
Ah.
Old
Yeah.
text.
that.
Ma.
Yeah, I didn't
Ma
know you
is
had
dead.
Chinese
Yeah.
ancestry. Noxy.
Brett, I'm sure you've got no issue with your weed going moldy because you just never store it because you just smoke it all.
No, in fact, it's one of our biggest problems here as growers in Limpopo, and I'm talking about my own grow here, is I was just looking at this morning at our plants after all this bad weather we've had, and mold is one of our biggest problems, along with powdery mildew. And those are the things that farmers or people in co-ops have to do, is to root that stuff out before it gets to the consumer. And so those things are much more issues for people sort of lower down the supply chain.
It spreads so quickly. It's very frustrating to deal with. But
Yeah.
absolutely. But I think generally speaking, powdery mildew is a challenge for big growers and for but not for consumers generally, because they don't really keep weed for that long. I think you've got to move quickly through the supply chain. You've got to get it in, get it out.
Yeah.
But I guess that's also what you get to grow things without chemicals.
And in terms of, I think you're asking the preferred way of storage of cannabis in Limpopo is mealie sacks, actually.
Wow.
I thought you were going to say under your bed, in your mattress.
In your mattress, yeah.
All right, guys.
Anyway,
Thanks so much for the updates. Keep tuned in to CannaSphere Africa, where we bring you things from all across the continent. It's exciting times, guys. The end of the year is coming.
Very exciting.
Excited for 2022. It's been a long year for all of us, but I think next year we're going to have some real movement on this industry. Imagine this time next year. Imagine how far we've come in these 12 months. Another 12 months. It's going to be a different space. So very exciting. Very exciting. Until next week.
Exciting stuff.
I'll see
Love.
there's-